Jamia Nabila Hassan's case, your arguments finished 4 months ago. There are 92 testimonies, I believe, that the petition contains. There's CCTV footage, and yet the case is stuck. It doesn't seem to be moving. I mean, where do students of Jamia and where do citizens turn for justice?
Well, Teesta, that's the million-dollar question as to where they go. Where does anyone go in today's circumstance when you're faced with a government and a police force that is, totally operating outside the boundaries of law, as if the police are a body of organized crime in this country rather than the peacekeepers and the law keepers and so on. Well, I'll tell you a little bit. I'll start for our viewers and say a few words about what's happening in the case. Yeah. And I remember this was the night when all of us and all our friends in Delhi who turn up at these kind of situations, all of us were in the police stations, we were in the hospitals, and the students were being brought with broken legs, broken hands. So many of them were sent to the ICU. And then
one young man lost his eye.
There
were women who were sexually assaulted.
That's right. And they were taken straight from the ICU when they had not even recovered, straight to the police station to record their statements. So there were people following the police vans to the police stations and so on. And parents and relatives of the injured and friends of the injured desperately wanting to know where their friends were, because nobody told them at all where they should go, which hospital, which police station, and so on. We went to some of the police stations, and the boys, who were obviously very, very student-like. They were not even political people or, tough revolutionaries and so on. They were crying bitterly in the police station, pleading with the police for. But I think overall the experience hardened them a bit in a good way. Because when they went through that incident, I think it was a very important political learning for all of them. That this is how the police behave, and we have to take it in our stride, not panic, not react with fear, even though we have fear inside us, not to show that to the police and to carry on regardless. Anyway, the beatings were very ferocious, and we started recording the testimonies of about 100 students. And it was so nice to see the students come forward and record in their own handwriting the FIRs, which later on we gave to the police. Now, there were some interesting moments in the case. And one is that somebody gave us a video of policemen actually entering the buses, which they say were torched by the agitators, and shows them carry it in a kind of a jerry can and pouring it on the seats of the buses and then going away. And so we submitted that in court as well, and we said that we don't know, because we have no idea where this video has surfaced, but it shows the Jamia area, it shows the agitation, and it shows policemen in uniform throwing something, pouring some liquid on the thing. And we actually pleaded that it appears as if, and this is the story circulating, that the police actually set fire to the buses in order to blame the protesters for what they have done. Now, the Vice Chancellor also took a strong stand. At that stage, the Vice Chancellor also spoke up in favor of the student. Some of the officials from Jamia also, they were very shattered by what happened. And they were shattered by what they saw in the hospitals particularly. Anyway, now the videos of the police entering the Jamia library was a real bonanza, because it showed how correct our story was, and it showed how false the police case was, because the video showed them brutally beating the students inside the library.
Pulling them out, I mean, they were hiding there.
Yeah. And I think the person who lost his eye was a person who was in the library at that stage.
That's right.
And he lost his life. I saw a very interesting. I was standing there near the hospital, and I saw a boy being brought. I forget his name now. A young man being brought out, and he had broken both his legs in the sense that they had smashed him so hard they had broken both his legs. So he was getting out of the ambulance on a stretcher, and then he was looking at something at the palm of his hand, and he was being very nonchalant, like looking around. Ah, this is interesting. And he was brutally beaten, very badly hurt. So I asked the friend next to me, and I said, "What's he doing?" He was watching. He was watching videos on his mobile, absolutely calm and nonchalant, and watching videos as he was coming down on a stretcher. So it made some of the staff in my organization also very, it made us grow up. Some of them had never had experience. Nabila Hassan, for example, had no idea what was, the power. But she would be running inside with many of my colleagues. All our friends were there, Farah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Harsh, everybody was there trying to do their best in the night. Anyway, the idea was when we filed the case, we put all this information on record, including the CVs and so on, including the Vice Chancellor's statement, and there was the Proctor's statement and so on. So it had a lot of information. We also had CDs of the beating, videotapes, that was all collected and put together. And then when we got the statement of about 99 to 100 students, we sent them off to the police and we sent them off here and there and asked them to register an FIR, which they did not do. And they have not registered those FIRs to this day.
Colin, may I just ask your colleagues if they can be a little quiet? I think there's a little noise coming
Yes, of
from the
course. I'll
back.
tell them right
Yeah,
away. Give
yeah,
me a second.
yeah.
Hey guys, no talking, please. So Lalita Kumari, the Constitution Bench decision of the Supreme Court, basically said that you have to register. Earlier, there was a confused situation in law with different courts holding it different ways and Supreme Court judgments in different directions. Maybe you can do an inquiry, maybe you can do a preliminary inquiry, maybe you can satisfy yourself about the truth of the FIR before you register. But now all that nonsense is gone, and you must register the FIR immediately and check about the truth of that FIR later. You can do an investigation and close the case, but you register the FIR as long as it discloses a cognizable offense. Then the case was filed, and as the case began to proceed, the students from Jamia during the COVID period were called to the police lockups. And we advised many people to say that we are not allowed to travel during the period of COVID, but the police were very insistent. They said, all right, if you can't travel, we'll send the police van to your house and take you. So many people were called. Eventually, some people were arrested and charge sheets were filed. But it was a very harrowing time because on top of this very traumatic incident of beating, now you have to, during the COVID period, go there and so on. What does the petition ask for? The petition asks for basically, there are many prayers, but the main thing is you cannot have the police force that beats you also do the investigation.
Investigation. So you asked for a special SIT, right?
We asked for a special SIT, and I think I discussed it with you, and we had some discussion on that, and we were actually given the names of the DGPs of earlier years, and said that these are persons said to be persons of integrity who don't have any allegiance to any political party or government, and therefore we are asking that you appoint them, remove the Delhi police completely, and appoint them as the investigators for the case. So that's our main point that we are pressing on. The interesting thing in the reply of the police,
Yeah,
and I was really taken aback by this.
I was going to say that the reply by the DCP is atrocious, atrocious.
Yeah, but there's another reply, I'm not sure which one that is. but there's a reply or it's a counter statement or something where they say, and I can't understand who did the drafting of this affidavit because it's so unpolice-like. They say not a single Jamia student was responsible for any of the damage. Not a single Jamia student is responsible for any criminal action. And we have not filed any FIR and we are not going to arrest any student from Jamia. Eventually they did, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 people they did. But the affidavit was strange. It almost seemed as if a friend of ours, yeah, or something like that. But there's not an allegation. So when you argue in court, you say, please look at the counter of the police, and the counter of the police doesn't make a single allegation of people from Jamia. If that is so, if the Jamia students have not done anything wrong, then why did you beat 99 students?
Yeah.
Why did you go into the bathrooms and beat the women? Why did you burn the mosque?
Yeah.
If the Jamia students are not doing anything, you burnt the mosque. And why did you go into the library and beat everybody? So there's not a single Jamia student really caught up in that whole thing. And I think that strengthens our case that it was a one-sided beating.
Why is the case not being heard?
Well, it's like this. It's just that there are 2 or 3 things. Apart from the case that we filed, there are about 6 or 7 other cases. So there's a battery of very good lawyers who are appearing for the Jamia students. It's just that he took up our matter first and then everybody argued. Now we finished the arguments. We didn't allow a single day to go by. So we finished. I took, I think, 2 days or something, but we finished the arguments from our side. And the the police, the government is just dragging it on now. Adjournments running into 1 month when you're supposed to finish the case quickly. Like I said, the government lawyers argued maybe for 6 days, 7 days, and in between you get a 1 month adjournment or a 3-week adjournment. So delaying tactics on behalf of the government and the police, and the case drags on. So we finished and we're waiting for them to argue. And it's a horrible situation to be in. And it's horrible to see that the bench was not very inclined to go quick, to put it diplomatically, not inclined to go quick at all. So there's so much of anger and frustration, and there was a situation in court where I think it was where some of the participants and maybe said shame, 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 and a thing like that happened, and everyone turned around and people were saying shame, 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 shame for the adjournments and so on. So the injury records would also have been put on record. So it's not as if we are joking when we say that upwards of 50 students were seriously injured. And you had kind of exploding grenades, which if you try to pick them up and throw them back, they explode in your hand. And then you have some kind of grenade which has a very toxic burning element inside. So it's not just like normal tear gas, which will make you cry, but it also burns your skin and burns your eye when the police use them. So we've asked for all, because under the judgments now of the Supreme Court, whenever there's an agitation or a demonstration and so on, the police have been told by the Supreme Court that if you want to punish anyone, and if you want to file FIRs against people, you must always have a police videographer ready, who will take the videos and so on. So in our petition, one of the prayers is that you give us the videos, because if you say the public outside Jamia, but in that area, were responsible for this, and we say you're responsible, then we'll go by your videos. We have no problem with that. So give us your videos as well. And so that's the long and short of the story on Jamia.
Okay, Colin, I just want to ask you, in your years and years of being counsel for human rights abuses, I mean, do you feel things are getting much worse in terms of accountability of the state, or is it just an impasse, which is it's just because institutions have not really learned from the various judgments, the better judgments that have come out, the better moments that have come out from institutions, those have not been internalized enough across the country? Because I mean, every time we seem to ask for the same thing. We are asking for independent investigation. We are asking for FIRs and prosecution of police officers. But here, you're actually seeing a situation where there's an attempt to conceal or destroy the evidence. There's an attempt to change the narrative completely. There's an attempt, not just an attempt, they've actually managed to criminalize those who have been victimized by the police themselves, who were peaceful protesters and students. So, I mean, how would you place this in the?
Yeah, I would say it's become 1,000 times worse.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a paradigm shift in how the police understand things and the judges understand things. There's a big shift. As far as the police are concerned, and this is linked to the judiciary, they somehow feel that no judge is going to really go against them. And I think that's born out of their experience of many, many cases where the judiciary, treats the police with a great deal of respect, whereas actually they should be catching them by the collar and putting them behind bars. So because they feel that the judges are soft on the police, they feel they have absolute immunity. And I've seen this feeling growing exponentially, say over the last, particularly after this present central government came to power. Now, what happens then when they feel they are immune?
Yeah.
They begin to lie with impunity.
Yeah.
They give you all kinds of cock and bull stories. They put it in writing. They swear affidavits. There's perjury, there's contempt of court on such a big scale. They just don't care. So they've got complete disregard. They laugh at the court. They laugh at the legal system and so on, and they become a law unto themselves. That is why I use the phrase: the police in India today are the largest body of organized crime in the country. And I've said that in many meetings where people say we should have police training and so on. I know there's some organizations specializing in police training. I mean, I find it laughable that anyone should try and create awareness among the police. They are the most aware of us all as to where they stand, where the public stands, where human rights activists stands. And as far as the police are concerned, we are worse than dogs. We are just kachara or garbage and so on. So that's an enormous thing. Judges have taken our system to the pits. Because if the judges are going to allow this kind of thing as in Jamia or Delhi riots, look at Delhi riots. You give them the video of this MLA, MP, member of parliament, cabinet member in Delhi, the cabinet member. Goli maro sale ko. We've got it. We've got 3, 4, 5, 6 videos. And then coming down from the stage and doing a procession. And Justice Muralidhar, what a phenomenal thing.
Yeah. Middle of the night, yeah.
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 And I made a mistake, Teesta, I made a big mistake. I knew in my bones they were going to do something in the night. I should have told the court, please sir, don't wait for tomorrow to complete just finish it today. And second is, the moment they did it, I should have taken contempt of court against them in the High Court. Contempt of court. It is contempt. In the middle of the arguments, when you find the arguments against you, I regret that I didn't do contempt of court, And so beautifully done. So no judge can survive today. No honest judge can survive. Why? Okay, we know the government is against judges and all that, but your judges are against judges. If your Chief Justice doesn't protect you, if the Chief Justice of your court is going to be a little happy that you're being bundled off somewhere else. And the other thing I've noticed, which is again linked to this whole thing, is that judges are politicized.
Yeah.
They support political parties in power. They belong to that political party. Maybe, So if you're politicized and you support the executive because you're from the same background, as the government, and you as a lawyer and a young judge, you became a judge, you're from the same background, the same political party, then what you see is there's no analysis of evidence. Like we had in good
Yeah.
old times where
Yeah.
you're arguing and there is judgment and there are facts. The judge is just sitting passive and immobile. Okay, I have to hear you. I'm hearing you. Finished. Thank you very much. And you know exactly what's going to happen. So that is the degeneration of the entire system. And that is why police have become totally uncontrollable today. And I think we've gone past the point of no return.
But in this Jamia case, do you plan to take any steps? Do you plan to do
Yes,
anything
we
to?
are filing a
Yeah,
32 petition.
yeah.
We're saying that this is what has happened. This is how the matter has been adjourned. This is how long it is taking. This is how long it is taking. And we want you to hear it here because we have no faith. And in the Delhi riots case, we'll definitely say that. You said it should be finished in 6 months. A year has passed and not even started. And we have no faith that the High Court will hear us fairly. We'll say, plainly we'll say. Then if the Supreme Court says, all right, now finish it, and we'll say if it's not good, if that court is not able to hear it, you send it to another court to hear it. One has to follow certain norms of, certain language has to be used and all that, but we are very frustrated. Fed up, you would say.
And what do you feel about the spirit of the Jamia students, even after the arrests and after the calumny and the misinformation?
I think Jamia, the attack on the Jamia students was a huge political education of the students. Not just of Jamia, but of the whole country,
Yeah.
including Aligarh and everywhere. They took a beating. They might have lost morale. They might have become terribly frightened. But this is going to be the best education of their lives. And they will, in the years to come, do something very phenomenal. I recruit Jamia students and I cannot imagine how extraordinary they are. They're just unbelievable. I'm used to years and years of recruiting people who are, completely politically zero, good-hearted people, etc., etc. And you get a little sad when you see the quality of the young. But the Delhi police have done us a very big favor. They have done a political class for the country, like a tutorial for the country on understanding power, understand state power, understand the police, understand the judiciary, understand that law doesn't work in the country. It is only muscle power and guns that work. And learn to organize, mobilize, educate, stay there no matter what. It's been a tremendous political education of the young.
Thank you so much, Colin. It's not a very hopeful note that on which we've spoken, but I still feel that the fact that there are people like you and many other lawyers and many other activists who keep on fighting these cases, I think to prise open the spaces that are there. Just to remind our viewers that this petition, this series of petitions that have been filed in the Delhi High Court on the issue of the attack on Jamia, the story began actually 9th and 11th December last year when the Citizenship Amendment Act was rammed through Parliament without debate, without referring it to a joint parliamentary committee, 9th in the Lok Sabha, 11th in the Rajya Sabha, notified on the Gazette overnight. And on 13th of December, there was a peaceful march that Jamia students organized. The country saw it, all of us saw it. And then, of course, on 15th of December, both in Jamia, inside the premises of Jamia, police brutality of a scale we've not seen in a long time. Maybe we've seen it in Jammu and Kashmir, Manipur, parts like that, but we've not seen it in quote-unquote mainline India on video like this. There was brutality unleashed on students of Jamia. And what I found was a moment of hope is I was in Malegaon at that, on Malegaon addressing a public meeting on CA, NPR, NRC. And across the country, including IITs and IIMs, over 300 colleges and university students protested. protested against what they saw happening to their colleagues in Jamia. So I do agree with Mr. Gonsalves when he said that it was a political wake-up call. And then, of course, we had the brutal attack on JNU on the 5th of January this year. So the new year began on a very, very somber note. And we saw, of course, the Shaheen Bagh protests, and we saw the amazingly inspirational protests that they spawned across the country, democratic protests. We saw the Muslim leadership, young Muslim leadership, women of all ages among the Muslim community take leadership in those protests, claim nationalism, claim patriotism for their own, reclaim the constitution in the streets. So, but it's been a harsh year, and it's been a harsh year, particularly after the Delhi violence of February 23rd and 24th. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to say, Colin, but I would just like to say that to the students of Jamia, to the students all over the country who faced this kind of brute state power, whether it's Hyderabad Central University, when Rohit Vemula's institutional murder took place, or JNU, I can only say that you represented a spirit of opposition to this extremely brutal regime when so many were quiet. Colin, few last words for you.
Well, I just want to say, despite the gloom and the darkness, all around, maybe some level of demoralization, I think this is a period of awakening. And I think from the Jamia struggle, the Aligarh struggle, the CAA struggles, and NRC struggles, I think this has sown, the state has sown the seeds of rebellion, the fight against injustice. And that is a very powerful thing. The police may be very, they may be very proud of themselves and what they do, and the government may pat them on their back. But the seeds of resistance have gone deep into the Indian soil. And the shoots will come, and the flowers will come, and the trees and the branches will come. The seeds of rebellion. And the fight against injustice starts from here. So in that sense, I see I see, maybe I may not live to see it, but I think it's a real time where the younger activists particularly will play a very powerful role in the years to come.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much, Colin, for your time. Thank you very, very much for talking to us.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Bye, Teesta.
Bye-bye.